Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this third session. This is day 3 of SiGMA 2023 in Malta, and today again we have another what should be a very interesting conversation around compliance. I have 3 new guests with me again today. Again, a wealth of experience between them, and as I said, today's topic will be around matters of compliance. So I'll get right into introducing my guests. So we have Kevin Campbell, who is our head of the PCI department at Kite. We have Peter Kane, who's business development manager at Bureau Veritas, and we have Sergio Muscat, who is the founder of Oxygia. So, like I said, today's conversation will be on matters of compliance, and obviously a topic which is very close to my heart. And yeah, let's get right into it. First of all, thank you, all of you, for joining us. Kevin, first question for you. So, as an auditor, and obviously you get to see a number of clients, a number of client systems, and you audit a number of these companies. From your experience, what are the most common, let's say, weaknesses or shortcomings whenever you perform an audit for companies? So what are, I wouldn't say trends, but what's common out there as far as your findings?
So what I find the common is the policies and procedures. A number of companies, when they're setting up or they're in operation, at the beginning they set them up and they're in place, and then as the years pass by, they tend to, I won't say be forgotten, but they're not updated, they're not reviewed, and they don't move or say change or be updated with the business. So then when you go back into doing the audit, you see a lot of things missing or processes missing, and that's one of the big ones I noticed.
Yeah, the policies keeps coming up. I know I review enough documents to see that that's the number one requirement in every standard and the number one finding in every report. Sergio, you have experience both with gaming companies and payments, right? Again, are there any common factors between these two industries as far as risks that you see common, or are they, completely different set of risks that apply to these two industries?
So I think that there is a certain commonality, because you are dealing with especially when it comes to remote stuff, in remote payments and remote gambling and so on. You're dealing with an unknown entity. You have no physical connection to that person that you can verify. So there is obviously, yes, a very strong connection in payments. Obviously, let's put it this way: the regulatory requirements are very much more stringent, and it has always been that way, and it continues to get even more stringent in terms of the compliance and so on. Within the gaming industry, especially when we're talking about B2C and so on, the compliance requirements need to be much less heavy, because when I'm going to open a bank account, for example, I am expecting a certain amount of checks, and I'm not expecting to go in, give them my ID card. Well, 20 years ago maybe, but I'm not expecting to go in, give them my ID card and get a bank account and start transacting and so on. But with iGaming, if you don't offer the service immediately, at least in a limited fashion, you basically lost the client. So obviously there needs to be this differentiation in balance between the compliance that goes into the banking industry, also because of perception, versus the compliance that goes into the iGaming industry. Down the line, things will tend to balance themselves out, because you start playing, you start depositing. The risk level that the gaming company is facing will start going up, and therefore at that point they will need to start taking measures to collect documentation, to do KYC and so on. And then obviously there's the regulatory part of things, which in most cases, when you're working with local regulated entities and countries and so on, the requirements for compliance are much higher than sort of if you're working with an MGA license, if you're working with a Curacao license and so on. So there are commonalities, but within the banking industry, there are certain expectations of non-immediate service provision, let's put it this way, which are very different from when you're going in and you're opening an iGaming account.
Absolutely. Peter, so your point of view is obviously different. You represent a certification body, so you come in after a company would have implemented all of the controls and hopefully put in place all the necessary requirements. From your experience, are companies getting it right the first time, or what weaknesses, let's say, or what findings keep coming up again, but in this case, from your point of view as the certification body?
Yeah, so Trev, it's very rare that we go to certify a company where we find non-conformities which actually inhibit the continuation of the audit. But there are instances where we have. The main aspects will be, I'd say, the easiest part, contrary to what you said initially in the beginning, is the policies, because mainly they get that right, because it's something which is very much drilled on. But it's mainly what I think is the most important thing is that companies see that certification as the initial milestone. Because the thing that gets harder is maintaining the certification. Because everybody thinks that obtaining the certification is the first thing and we're done. The main ethos of certification is continuous improvement. So when you get certified, I'm not going to say the easiest part, because obviously you've gone through the drill, you've done all through the controls and everything, which is of paramount importance. But there needs to be a good level of knowledge within the organization. It's not just a document exercise. Because if you end up just for the sake of passing, in reality, for an auditor and for a certification body, it's really hard, because we have to work on objective evidence. So if you have to have a control in place and you've got proof that you've got the control in place, and we see that it is an effective control in place, but ultimately you need to maintain your certification and you need to ensure that it's actually serving you in the right way. So I think that the main issue is knowledge and maintaining the system. You mentioned it also in the beginning, that there needs to be this element of culture. I would think that is the main, because you can be taught what to do, but maintaining it comes border now into culture. So that's an important aspect of it.
If I can add, I think that is also valid for the way people operate iGaming companies. No, I mean, regulation is there in a sense as a guideline. I mean, obviously you have to follow the regulations and so on, but in the end, it's up to the company to make the best out of that, and to even maybe implement more measures than what is required by the regulation, and it's not only because sort of we're good people, it's also because in most cases it's actually good business sense. I mean, yesterday we were talking about problem gambling and so on, and the operators were telling me, in the long term, when you think about the medium to long term effects on the business, having no problem gamblers, or as minimizing the amount of problem gamblers on the website will affect the business positively, because you're creating much more stability. So as you said, the regulation is there, but you're either there just ticking the boxes, or you're actually taking it seriously, and that makes a huge difference. And I think that some companies maybe don't understand. They tend to see the short-term benefits of just doing their ticking the boxes, but in the long term it creates much more instability, and when you start growing, those instabilities will start creating high fluctuations within the business rather than causing stability.
So also, I find, following up from what Peter saying and Sergio saying, is that over the long run, when people change in who the auditor has been dealing with for a number of years, and they get used to how and what information is requested and how the business is running, when a new person comes in, you sometimes have to start again, especially as an auditor, because that person hasn't had that experience maybe in doing the actual audit or what information is required, and then you notice there's some gaps in their learning, maybe possibly from the background they maybe not had enough, and it's come from I think in our field that a number of cybersecurity, the word cybersecurity, but
Kevin, so again, as an auditor, you get to see companies, especially regulated entities like banks, gaming companies, and others, that have to comply with a number of standards, a number of different regulations, and as I normally put it, they seem to be in a constant state of audit, right? So I'm pretty sure you see, especially because we deal with some of these clients, we help them with compliance for different standards, right? So sometimes you're coming in to perform an audit for one standard, and then the next day for another. So there must be an element of overlap of the requirements, despite them being different sets of standards or regulations. How are companies dealing with this?
So what I found is companies tend to take, I don't know if it's the right word, maybe a systematic approach. So they first look at the standards they want to cover. So ISO, PCI, any one of the standards of the regulatory body. And then they tackle the one they feel is not easier, but one they can adjust to. And then you start to look at the gaps, like if you wanted to do ISO, so they overlap because certain requirements, change management, access controls, monitoring, firewalls or business functions and meetings taking place at regular times. These all come across in all the regulations. So they first, for me, they tackle the one they can see meeting first, and then they're more comfortable, and then they move on to maybe the ones which involve a bit more people or understanding, and then they take on, say, the ISO as the next one.
Peter, since we're talking about different standards and regulations, obviously your company sees them all. You certify for a bunch of different standards. From an information security point of view, which ones would you consider to be the popular ones right now?
So definitely, there is a big aura now around the 27K series with 27001, the main one. But as we go closer to online-based cloud services and so on, is 27032, which is a cybersecurity, which is growing even more, GDPR aspect as well. So the 27K family is definitely on the up, and I think even with the changes now, it's being much more streamlined with other standards itself. Like you mentioned, the common aspects. Also, it's common aspects in other like quality management system and so on. So management of change is common throughout, be it it's health and safety, be it quality management itself. So the main backbone of the certifications now are through the NXSL are very very common, and that's the scope of the NXSL. So those are the main that we're seeing at this point in time. So 27001 is definitely.
Yeah, and obviously we do quite a bit of work in that space ourselves. In fact, the 27001, right, the Information Security Standard, there has been a recent update there to the standard with the version 2022. What would you consider maybe to be the salient points there of that change? And for companies that have certified with the, let's call it the old standard, is there a need to maybe upgrade their certification, or how does that work?
So who's already certified with 2013? It's a fairly simple transition towards the 27K with the new version. In reality, I don't see it as a big change. It's just an evolution, coming up to scratch with what's actually required nowadays. Because we've got the GDR aspect, the NIST DORA coming in, so the number of controls have reduced, but it doesn't mean that you need less effort. It's just the case that they're merged and they're more relevant to today's environment. So I wouldn't see it as a big change for any organization going for the new version, because in reality it's just moving on with the times, and it's an upgrade, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's an outright change from this going to that, or a drastic change, because in essence there's a lot of things which are the same, but it's just an improvement and growing with what the industry requires.
And Kev, in terms of PCI, obviously you're an expert on PCI. You live PCI every day. So again, there has been a significant change there in the new standard, with version 4 being the most recent one. Again, what changes should we expect? What are the let's say the important ones, and possibly the difficult ones that companies need to start complying with?
So I don't know how much time you have, but I couldn't go through them all now. But no, one of the important ones is the targeted risk analysis. So basically, there are some requirements within the standard which require a periodic review or frequency, how often some requirements should take place. For instance, if you're using systems which are, as they say, not affected by common vulnerabilities in terms of malware, then there should be a review how often you need to check those systems, if that's still applicable to those. And it comes with filling in a number of forms and questions and assessing the risk, and then coming up with that specific time frame, how often you should evaluate those systems. There are a number of requirements like this. So yeah, a lot to look forward to.
Very good. And Sergio, so again, changing a bit into getting into the gaming industry. So gaming is one of those industries that has gone through a transformation, especially since COVID, with work practice, change, practices changing, people working from home, hybrid arrangements. Yesterday, in the other session, I asked the same questions, but from a technical point of view. But in terms of information security, in terms of companies being able to continue meeting their compliance obligations, how has this change affected, let's say, information security, new risks, new threats to an organization?
Well, I've thought about this a little bit, because I mean it's kind of it's a little bit tricky, because from one end, yes, obviously, there are some changes that happen. I mean, security, changed, whether it's greater security issues or different security issues, I think is the question. I mean, in essence, whatever it is, we need to deal with it, because the bottom line is that this is here to stay. But I think that when we were, let's say, an office-based species, there were different security issues. I mean, sort of, you were scared of people coming in with a USB stick, and sort of, plugging it into the computer and whatnot, and and stealing information, and these issues existed, were dealt with based on the type of the company, on the policy of the company, and so on. So, in reality, I think it is more of of an HR kind of management style issue, sort of. How are you vetting your employees? Sort of, who are you bringing on board? How trustworthy are the people? So, in a sense, sort of in the same way that sort of, in order to change sort of the behavior or the culture of a generation, you have to start from the education system. In order to change the behavior and the culture of employees, you have to start with the company culture, with the way HR is behaving, with the way you treat your employees, and so on. The security issues, they are there. They are always going to be present. They can never be completely mitigated. They are just different types of issues. Where you have now employees who are working from a, let's say, unmonitored internet connection, rather than going through the company internet connection. You have employees who are working from their own computer, maybe, and then if this is an issue, then the company should give the laptop to the employees, set it up with all the security systems that needs to be set up, and you're not in a very, very different situation than we were pre-COVID, where everyone still had their laptop. They took it home. They worked from home, and so on. I mean, the transition was not as sudden as maybe I think we might tend to believe, because when is it that employees were only able to access their computer from work? When is it that we didn't have laptops, but these PCs basically from home, with all the all the USB ports blocked and so on and so forth? So even pre-COVID, everyone was running around with their work laptop. They were so the I think that the transition is not that huge as we tend to believe it. I think it's more of a the cultural change that goes sort of around how do we manage a remote workforce rather than the security of it.
Yes, actually, on what you just said, even us as an audit company, we've transformed our work practices as well. We get to do a lot of the work remotely ourselves, especially because our clients are remote themselves, right? Systems are on the cloud or in different locations. So I suppose that's the way it goes right now.
It's already a remote world.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Last question, because we're running out of time. Peter, maybe a little bit of a not a tricky question, but a cheeky one. So, in terms of you, obviously, again, you see companies when you go in to certify them. Do companies have all the necessary skills, all the necessary resources to comply with the standards, so that when you come in, you find them, let's say, in good shape? Or do you think that most companies definitely need to make use of external resources, external consultants to get the job done?
So it's very rare that we receive a request coming from a company whereby they've got no form of assistance in terms of conformity to the standard. And I think the main reason why is the lack of knowledge in a way. And I think why we as a group are so strong is because we meet a lot of different companies. We've got a big pool of auditors with big and diverse experiences worldwide. Same would be with, for example, like yourself. You know, it's not just implementing just one, you're implementing a whole lot of 27K certifications throughout a lot of your clients. So this knowledge you get from one company to another, sharing common practices and good practices with diverse industries. I think that is the key where like consultants come in and how they assist companies in going forward. No, I think the main issue is, and the main aspect is sharing the knowledge, because that is not easy. You know, in terms of policies and so on, one can make do with some policies, hit and run here and there, and somehow come in conformity. But the aspect of knowledge and knowing exactly what you need to do, and let's not forget the aspect of you might need to invest. So it's very important to know that your investment is worthwhile and you're guided in the correct manner as well. You know, there's this big misconception that, let's say, 27K is very IT oriented. It's not the fact. You know, it is not the fact. So it's important to have the knowledge and the guidance towards effectively implementing such a system.
I think that's all we had for today. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your contribution. Obviously, thank you to everyone that will be seeing these sessions online. So we see you all online. Thank you to the team that are all here and they're all participating in these sessions and in setting up all of this. Our booth here at SiGMA. Today is the last day. So yeah, until we see all of you again in another session, cheers to all. Thank you guys.